So again, we're in notes here on multi-step equations. They work just the same way. So a couple things to make note of up here at the top. Just a couple of reminders. And we're going to talk about back to our regularly scheduled programming. As we were starting to say, before we got interrupted by all that, we're going to talk a lot about do and undo and opposites today. So just a reminder, when you're doing any of these problems, basically we just need to know a couple things. We need to know add and subtract our opposites, and we need to know that multiply and divide our opposites, okay? They're opposites or they undo each other. If we keep those couple of basic things down, this is a piece of cake. But our biggest thing when we're trying to solve is to get the x term. And I'll talk about that word term in a minute here. Alone, okay? So whenever I do that, here's what I like to do. I always look to say, okay, where's my x? It's right here. So my first job, and I like to kind of box it in, my first job is to get that x over 5 by itself. Then I can deal with the 5. Whatever's not in the box on that side of the equals, it's got to go. So what's the opposite of plus and 9 to something? Subtract, okay? So I'm going to minus 9 to both sides because I want what's in the box to be by itself. Okay, so x over 5. And 6 minus 9, again, whether you go to the calculator or, again, always think money. If I got $6 but I go spend 9, uh-oh, I'm in the hole. I spent too much. $3 in the hole. I get that by itself. Now I only got one thing keeping me from having x solved for. What's the opposite of dividing by 5? Multiply. And when I multiply, the 5's whole job in life is just to cancel that out. And once we do that, we get to the answer. So again, it kind of goes back over that down below here. Ooh. Thank you. So what's the first thing being done to x? Well, we minus 9, and we want to stress here from both sides, because sometimes you might just do it to one side. Well, then it's not equal anymore. It's not the same equation. And then when that's done, and again, both of these are to undo those steps, okay? To undo the plus 9, to undo the divide by 5, okay? So that's what we did to get there. And I sort of got ahead of myself and answered the last blank. Well, that happens sometimes. Okay. Now, do you have to do what they mentioned down here below? Do you have to do a do-undo chart? No, not really, okay? But if it's something that helps you to see how this works, okay, if that helps you some to look at it and say, well, I've got to undo divide by 5 and I got to undo plus 9, and then literally write down what it takes to undo them, okay, that's okay. Because here I just remind myself, yeah, first I got to minus the 9, bless you, then I have to do the times by 5 part, okay? Again, it's up to you. Very least I want to see like what we were doing work-wise up top. And I'm going to try to get some colored pencils in here so we can actually see the steps a little bit better, because I think that may help some of you a bit, okay? So we're going to flip over to the back. We're going to try things out here with the do-undo chart and kind of see how this goes. So I notice I'm minusing 2 from D and I'm dividing it by 3. Okay. So to undo each of these, you're like, well, to undo divide by 3, I'd have to times. And to undo minus 2, I'd have to plus. But here's the thing that's tricky. Whatever's the furthest away from my variable is what I have to do first. So like here, I need to get the D minus 2 alone before I can, solve for D. So I noticed the divide by 3 part is the part that's not in the box. So I'm going to undo that first. And I undo that by multiplying by 3. And again, whatever I do to one side, I have to do to both, because then those will cancel. So then d minus 2, 7 times 3 would be 21. And then I just undo my minus 2 by plussing 2. And I thought about it ahead, which makes it easier. I really don't have to think about it as much. So d equals 23. Now again, I'm not going to force you to check, but if I wanted to, all I would do is I'd say, okay, I'm going to plug this 23 in for my d. Let's see here. 23 minus 2 is 21. Divided by 3, yep, that's 7. Okay, that one works. And if I do the check and I find out it doesn't work, I'm like, oh, I did something wrong. I better go back and look at this again. So, nothing too bad. But now we're going to get one that's a little bit trickier. When we've got signs here, okay, we always want to use the sign in front of the number. Now we're actually going to rewrite this one, because we're looking at this and we're like, okay, let's see what we got to do here. We're adding 3 to a, and we're dividing a by 7, but I'm going to leave a little bit of space here because we may be changing that up a little bit. So how do I undo adding 3? Subtract. And I undo dividing by 7 by multiplying. So here's how this is going to work. And instead of using their kind of squished up places here, we're going to think about for a minute. Okay, there's my first job. Whatever is directly connected to my A, we want to get that alone first. So this time, my first job is to undo the plus 3. Well, we got that minus 3 right here. So let me rewrite this. I want to rewrite it where we got a little more space to work with. So we're going to minus 3 from both sides first. So if we do that, minus 3, okay, so that'll make that go away. Here's where things are going to change a little bit. I'm going to put that negative just on my number. That's going to make life easier for me later. So I'm going to make that a over negative 7 instead of having the negative in front and maybe getting confused. So you're like, oh, so my do is dividing by negative 7. So I need to, for my last step, times by negative 7. Because again, anything that I multiply by, I'll cancel out the divide part. Notice I'm not multiplying it to the top. I'm just putting it down below on the bottom. And negative times negative is positive because we times by negative 7 to both sides. And again, I am going to go ahead and just check for a second just to be sure. So let's see here. 3 minus 35 divided by 7 equals negative 2. Well, I know 35 divided by 7 is 5. If I had $3 and I borrowed 5 from somebody, I owe them 2. All right, that one works. And again, this just gets you some examples of things. Now, I am going to take some time. We're going to try out a couple of the homework problems too, just to make sure we're going okay. But this, again, keep handy because it's always nice to have an example when we're getting ready for a quiz or a test or something like that. So this guy, okay, this is the homework. And the other interesting thing about this is our last homework for this homework check. So this is homework check number 3. Assignment number 4 is the last one. So when we have that check on Thursday, this will be the one that'll have you ready and ready to go. So we're going to find a couple of problems here. So I'm thinking number 4 looks interesting. Number 9 looks kind of like fun. I just want to see one thing. Okay. One thing I am going to have you do right now, I'm going to have you cross out number 11. We haven't done consecutive integers yet. We'll hit that a different time. All right. We're going to solve these. Now again, it all depends on how you want to go about looking at this. If you want to do the do and undo chart, we can. If this isn't your thing, I'll do it on the first one. I won't do it on the second. But I notice here, I'm multiplying by a fraction, so I'm multiplying by 3 over 2. And I'm also minusing by 8. Whatever's on the side with a is what the do is. So if I'm going to undo it, I'd have to do opposites. Now that can get kind of interesting with the fraction. We'll come back to that one. But the undo on my minus 8 would be to plus 8. And that's actually what I need to do first, because there's what's directly connected with my a. So I'm going to plus 8. Again, whatever I do to one side, I have to do to both. Now we're going to do this a little bit differently. You're like, wait a minute, what do you mean? Well, instead of looking at this as 3 over 2, which I think is a little complicated, we're going to look at it as, oh, we're timesing by 3 and dividing by 2. Because then if I do undos on those, okay, and we already did this one, my next job is to get rid of this fraction, the divide by 2 part. So what we're going to do is we're going to times by 2.
Is it on here?
So whatever we do to one side, we do to both. So we did the divide by 2 part. Took care of that. And then my last job with my do undo is to take care of the times 3, which is divide. Kind of a long one. Holy cow. Okay, but I got there. That's the important thing. Now again, if one of your big things is trying to figure out what to do, I think the do-undo chart would do you some good. But otherwise, if you want to just look and go, okay, first goal, that stuff alone. Got to get rid of the divide by -9 by doing the opposite. Again, and that always is just going to cancel what's in the bottom. It's never going to multiply up here. We don't need to distribute. And then 7 times -9, because again, you're multiplying. It's -63, and if you need the calculator for that, that's okay. And just keep working away at it. Okay, now I want to get 2t alone. Got to do the opposite of minusing 5. I got to undo it by plussing 5. And then you're like, finally, I got to undo times 2. I'm going to divide by 2. Again, both sides. It's got to be both sides. Gotta. And I'm doing some of the nastier ones with you, because I think most of the other ones have examples that we were doing in the notes. Those look kind of weird, though. And then the only other thing we're looking at is I always like to throw a word problem or two in just to keep us thinking about it a bit, but I don't mind helping out. Okay, so here for 10, then I'm going to let you loose. 12 decreased by twice a number is -7. Okay, so 12, what's decreased by? Subtract. By twice a number, well, we know a number is always x, so twice would be 2. Is this my equals? -7. And it looks just like one of the other ones, and we've got to solve this. So again, first job, get that -2x by itself. got to dump that plus or that positive 12. What's my undo or what's my opposite of a positive or a plus 12? Subtract it. And again, I owe somebody $7. I borrow 12 more, means I owe them more. Now I owe them $19. Holy crap. And then again, this isn't minus 2, it's negative 2 times x. So to undo multiply, we divide. And it's okay to get decimal answers or fraction answers. A negative divided by a negative is a positive. And if we do 19 divided by 2, oops, let me get out of there. Negative 19 divided by negative 2. 9.5. And we're good to go. So I need to see steps on this. I don't just want to see answers because you've been plugging and chugging, trying to guess answers. Okay? Use the notes. Try to finish up as many of these as you can. And again, that homework check's just in, a couple of days here. So if there's some of the other ones that either you don't have of the other 4, because the list is on the backboard in green, they're all up there now. If you need any of those, let me know. If you got questions on them, let me know. But again, use your work time wisely. You got a good 15, almost 20 minutes here to get this knocked out and out of the way and maybe do some of the makeup stuff if you need to, okay? And